name is Benny Bonilla. I was born in January 1934. And I was born in a barrio. The barrio is and was East Harlem, from 99th Street to 125th. That was Spanish Harlem. The barrio had one Spanish theater on 116 and Lenox Avenue, Teatro Hispano. My mother was a movie buff, so she used to go to movies every day. Before my mother got married, she was very spoiled. She used to go to the movies every day. Her mother gave her money, 15 years old, 17, spoiled. Now she gets married to my father, and she has a baby.
Yeah.
But she wants to go to the movies. She don't want to be tied up with a baby. But her mother was working, so she had to take her baby, which is me, to the theater on 116th Street. Cosmo Theater, Cosmo. And she takes me to the theater, and naturally, in those days, you couldn't talk or nothing in the movie. The ushers would shush you right away. You couldn't. Now everybody talks and everything.
I know.
So naturally, after 10 or 15 minutes of being in the movie, I start, you know, so the usher comes over. You know, you're gonna have to keep that little baby still, or you have to leave. She said, all right. So of course I did it again. So this time the manager came and said, excuse me, can I speak to you in the back, miss? So she went to the back. They told you have to leave with the baby because you're disturbing the other people. My mother was very annoyed. So she must have stayed up all night trying to figure out a way how to shut me up, you know what I mean, without violating the law. So now a couple of days later, we go back to the movie, and my mother has me in the blanket. She's watching the movie, and I'm sitting there. Eventually, I start, and she reaches in her bag, and she takes out the milk bottle, and boop! But the milk bottle was filled with Café Bustelo.
Oh.
Caffeine. Of course, I said, oh man, this is some good shit. And I went out like a light.
Oh my God.
So since the age of 4 months to 85 years old, I've been drinking coffee. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I love that, man. And I told my mother years later, Mom, if you do that now, they arrest you. You can't do that. You know? Anyway, that was cool. So being she was this movie buff, she also used to go to the Spanish theater. There was only one. One large one and one little one on 108th or 109th that was called a Meajito.
Yeah.
It always smelled like piss. Anyway, so, but the Hispano was big deal. They would bring acts from Spain, South America, and Brazil.
Right.
You know, you see real professional, and they had a pit band. I counted them. There were 20 musicians. The guy's name was Néstor Socaraz. That was his band. I mean, boom, the pit band. So I'm sitting there, and when the curtain shuts, and the band starts playing, I went, ah! So naturally, I'm a kid, about 3 years old, 4, and I ran to the railing, and I'm doing the guys said, and violins, I mean,
wow.
I said, oh my God, I was multiplied, man. And my mother went several times, and every time we went, I would run to the thing, and, oh my God, I was the only different musician playing. It was just, so then finally, I guess it stayed in my head, you know, that music business, and those days, no TV. All you heard was the radio all day, and one Spanish station, WWRL. And so her mother my grandmother would have the Spanish station on all day long. The hottest songs in those days was Chano Pozos. He had written this song for Machito. It was a big hit. And Norm Morales. So that's what you heard mostly. Juliandino, Dabalita. I used to, you know, and I'd be banging on the table. I don't know what I was doing. I'd be just banging because I like it. So my grandmother was the one that, if it wasn't for her, I would have been a mailman. For my life. So Junior Banker. So I go in the kitchen. She said, "Hey, Tama, go with the radio now." She gives me an oatmeal box, which is round. Do, 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 do. Yeah, I love it. So I'll be beating on my oatmeal box.
Wow.
All day long. I come from school, my oatmeal box was right there. That was my instrument. All right? So in the meantime, I'm growing up. So, of course, I'm not beating the oatmeal box all the time, but that's how I started. So now my cousins lived in the same building as I did on 115th Street and Madison Avenue. Nia Pantoja, my uncle. So he had two sons.
Yeah.
The younger one, they called him Negrito Pantoja because he's black. And he became a conga player forever. And his best friend, now he became because his best friend was Willie Cora. Willie the Cora was Willie Bobo. So Willie Bobo will come to the house all the time, that's his friend. So I meet him. So they're learning already. They're taking lessons off this guy that nobody ever knows about. He was the mentor for I don't know how many guys in East China, Barrio, on timbales. He was the mentor for Jimmy Zapatel. He taught Willie Bobo, and who knows how many more. His name was Santos Miranda. The reason he didn't work with the big bands was he was black. In those days, you black, you're not working even the Latin band.
Very difficult. Yeah.
You work in a Latin band if the Latin band looks like Machito. They're black.
Yeah.
Or Aparona Eki, that's Louis Martino, Louis Melendez, and there was a band called Aparona Eki, all black.
Right.
All black. They were a house band on 110th Street. So that's the bands you work with. But he studied and he learned American, so he started working with American bands, Santos Miranda. So being he knew American, he was teaching Willie. That's how Willie and Bobo were playing American drum because of Santos. And Jimmy Zapatel was chef. So now we will meet on my stoop because Willie will come to visit my cousin. And then eventually, you know, we used to do things as kids do, go to the park and everything. But now we hit about 12, going on 13, and Willie's really getting into it, man. So I told him that I like that, you know. So he says, "Well, look, tell your mother to get you a drum." I said, "Huh?" She says, "Tell her to get you $12. $12. A conga now is $300.
500.
$12 was just for the shell. In those days, they sold the congas without no skins or nothing, just the shells.
Wow.
All lined up. Simone was a store. Lennox on 116 and 115. Simone Bakery. But in the back, he had all these conga de mangos, shells. Of course, he was from Havana, Cuba. So all the Cubanos, Luis Mangual Sr., Chano Pozo, all them guys will hang out in his bakery in the back and smoke the cigars and shoot the shit. So Willie Bob brings me there. And he picked me out a shell. So he said, now you gotta pick out a skin. The skins are in boxes, 2 boxes. I said, well, he said, well, you gotta take this skin here. I told him, what's the difference between that box and that box? He said, this box is skin, mule skin, very thick, usually for conga players with strong hands. So, but when you're learning, you get the other skin. Goat skin is thinner, so you buy the goat skin. I said, oh yeah. And how do you put it on? You know what I mean? It's just a stiff piece of board, man. He says, you get home, tell your mother you want to put it in the bathtub. The skin in the bathtub. Let it soak all day, all night. The next day you take it out. So all that is like a piece of paper. By the tacks that you put the carpets down, little tacks. And you and your brother, he holds one side and you tack the skin all around until there. Don't touch it till the next day. By the next day, that skin is tight. They did the same thing on bongos. You had to put the skin on with tacks. That's why in those days, all the percussionists had the congas or the bongos. They used to also have in their bag sterno bags.
The sternals, yeah.
And you would see them in between the sect or in between the number. They would light up the sterno bag, heat up the bongo, pop, 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 until they got the tone they wanted,
The tone they
or
wanted,
the conga.
yeah.
The conga, you take the conga, hit it up, doo doo.
Actually, if you ever seen any,
Until you got the tone you wanted.
Chuck Stewart took
You
some
know?
photos of actually
So,
of Mangual.
That would last a set, 4 or 5 songs. Then for the next set you got to do it again before you go on. Tune up your conga with the can of sterno. So I found that fascinating. So now he gets me this conga and we're learning. In the meantime, a disaster hits me. My mother is moving us to the Bronx. What? My God, I hated that, man.
What year was that about?
Late 1944, almost 1945. But I kept going back on the weekends. I used to sneak on the train. But we moved to the Bronx.
Was your mother born here?
My mother was born in Puerto Rico.
Okay, and when did they come over?
She was Americanized Buddha. She hardly spoke no Spanish because she came here, she was 2 years old. And she went through the whole school system speaking English. Only in those days, no se habla español here. You had to speak English.
You have to speak English.
So in my house, being she raised me and my brother, we spoke only English. Okay. But now we moved to the Bronx. But I got my little conga and doing my little thing, and so I practiced with my radio. I didn't have a phonograph then, it was mostly radio. And then, when I'm going to school, my first year in high school, and boom, I made friends with this guy, the conga player. His name is Ray Montilla. He lived in the Bronx, near me, maybe a mile away or so. But after school, I would go to his house. Or I would go home and get my conga and go went to his house. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have done nothing. Because now I sat down with the drum, and you know, I started doing what I suppose was a conga beat. And he's looking at me, and he just stopped. He says, "That's terrible." He said, "What you're doing is terrible, man. You never work in a band doing what you're doing." But then he showed me how to put my hands the right way and showed me that what regulates the beat really is not the downbeat, the doom-doom, it's the left hand. The rocking of the left hand is what sends the message.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get that for nothing, man. So he said, put number 1 here and number 2 in the fingertip. 1, 2. Doom, 1, 2. Doom, 1, 2. And finally, if it wasn't for that, I would have never got a job. So I learned the tumbao, but let me go back just a little bit. Just before we moved to the Bronx that year, my cousin and I, we just hanging out. Sapo, his name was, Sapo. And we're going through the park, Central Park, and we hear music on 110th Street. Oh man, let's go check that out, man. There was a dance hall right on 110th Street and 5th Avenue. And we could hear so we looking like that. So my cousin says, "Come on, let's go around the corner." Cause he was the real beat there, man, you know? So he was a gangster eventually, like his father. But so we went around the corner. He said, "We're gonna sneak in." So we opened this window to an empty lot to the back of the building, and we opened the window, and it's the men's room. So of course he told me, "You go first." Oh, why me? You know what I mean? So I went first, and then he came in. Now, just so that you know, the men's room, when you came out, you went up these stairs, and right next to the stairs was the bandstand. So I going up the stairs, man, I'm hearing the music getting louder and louder, man. And finally I peep up, and it's Machito Band, man.
Wow.
They're doing a tune, I never forgot the name of the song. El Hace de la Rumba.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite song.
After that, he was singing la 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 la. I was still mortified. I was so mortified. I didn't even hear the bouncer come and grab me. He grabbed me, boy, and threw me out.
I can imagine.
Stop, get out, man. Right, okay. A couple of weeks later, I go back by myself. I don't want my cousin no more. He get me in trouble. I just want to hear the music from the outside. So it was matinee on a Sunday. I remember like yesterday. And I'm listening to the music, and the door's open, and there's 2 men on the table getting the money. Later I found out that was a guy called Federico Pagani and Mario Basa. They were collecting the money. But they threw their own dance on Sunday so the band would work. So a taxi pulls up. The drummer gets out with bass drum, the timbale box. The guy opened the trunk, timbale box. I said, "Oh man." So I walk up to him. I told him, "Can I help you with that?" Now I'm talking English to him. And he tells me in Spanish, "Lo que tú quieres meterte en el baile." I told him, yeah, I'm gonna go in the dance. So he said, "Okay." So I grabbed his bass drum, man, yeah, and we rolling. And when we get to the door, Federico Pagani told me, "Hey, how do I? You can't go in there, you're a minor. I lose my license." I ain't say anything. So Uba told him, "Oh, no, let the kid go in, man. He just wants to hear the band. He's not even going to dance, man." So Mario told him, déjalo que entre. So, Federico told me, okay, you going in, but you have to sit in the back with the band behind the curtain. Now, what best seat do you want if you want to hear a band? Is to sit on the stage with them behind the curtain. So I'm sitting there, man, Uber's right there, man, and the band, bah, man, I heard that set, man, I almost died, man. I couldn't tell you the feeling that I had listening to that Machito band, man. And they were all so friendly and so, you know, there was no water bottles on the stage. They were there, they did a job, boom, that, professionally. I said, oh, suck. Anyway, then I had to leave. My mother kicked my ass, man. Didn't stay out too long, so I left. That was about the time we moved to the Bronx. So I never went back until later. I met the Machito band later. So now we moved to the Bronx, and I had the episode with Ray Montilla where he tells me, the terrible, so I learned. So now I learned the beat, and I got an army bag. I put my conga in this old army bag that my stepfather gave me. And I got permission to go out on Saturday night. But be back by 11 o'clock. Oh, man. I'm not mommy. No. But she let me go out. So what I would do, I did it about 3 Saturdays. I would go to the neighborhood where they had a few lounges, bars, and they had live music. And I would go in and I asked the guy if I see that he's a small group, because they're always small groups. He only had a drummer, and a trumpet player, and a bass player, piano, singer. ¿Puedo tocar? Okay, and they would let me play for about an hour or so. That's split. Finally, about the 3rd week, across the street from Amadeo. You've been to Amadeo, right?
Probably one time.
Amadeo. Record shop, yeah. But it's across the street. There was a lounge called the Bali, B-A-L-I. And it had a 6-piece group. The leader was a guy called Polito Galindez. Now, Polito Galindez was from Puerto Rico. The reason he couldn't work downtown with no bands and everything, he was black. But his best friends was Machito and Mario Basa. So he's on all their recordings.
Right.
Him and Marcelino.
Guerra or Valdez?
Marcelino, who was?
Marcelino
Guerra.
Guerra, yeah.
Marcelino Guerra. Paulito Galinde, they would do the coro on all the recordings of Machito. So he made some money, but he had this little group in the Bronx. So I walk in and I'm listening to the group. Finally, when they're going to go on again, I tell them, perdona, ¿te puedo tocar? ¿Tú tocas? Sí, yo toco, man. He said, okay. So later on, I played beyond the time, boy. It was a nice little group, man. And then he sang so nice. And I played, naturally I got home late and I got my ass chewed, you know. But then the next Saturday I went back to the same place. I ain't going nowhere. I'm going back to where the guy that accepted me. Doing the set, and I stayed to the last set. Now I'm getting daring, man. And I get off the band, I get off the bandstand and I tell him, oye, muchas gracias, papá. You know, he said, espérate un segundo, ¿dónde tú vas? I said, well, I'm going home. ¿A ti te gusta la banda? Yeah, me gusta. He said, ven el jueves, ensayo. Oh, what size are you? I said, well, I'm a medium. I said, okay, get you a band jacket. Oh, shit. I was in my first band, Polito Galinde Conjunto.
Wow.
Bam. So then, oh, and then he paid me. He said, back there, another rider. He went, he came back, and he gave me $8. Now, 1951, $8 were like $75, $80 in those days, in the depression, in those days, $8. So I said, oh, okay, man, yeah, man, boom. In the morning, get up, man, we have our breakfast, man, we're talking, and I said, Mommy, and I go over to her, and I told her, I got paid last night. And she said, yeah? Do what? I play conga. And I gave her the $8. So she said, I remember her face, man. She looked at the $8 and she looked at me. She said, they paid you this for the conga, playing conga? Yeah. About 10 seconds. She looked at her hand with the money. Then she told me, when is your next job? Because I made $8 in 3 hours and she was making $15 for 5 days a week.
5 days a week, yes. Oh my God. It's...
So I made half of what she made in a couple of hours, then she worked 5 days, and that's how she said, oh yeah, man. I should, you know, can't be that bad. But anyway, she asked me when was my next job. So that was the beginning. So then, by that time, I was still going to school. I was going to Hector Rivera, my friends, I was hanging out with Hector, and he would come to the bar. And now, Hector makes the band. Before Hector's band, I was hanging out and I met Eddie Palmieri. He was 14 years old. And finally we got into this band called Eduardo. Eddie was on piano, Eduardo hizo conjunto. Eddie was already going to be 16. And I was on conga, and he was on piano. And I love that band, man. And the band leader was the guy on horn, Eduardo. Real name, Eddie Forrester, played trumpet. So he started Eddie off with myself. Before that, Eddie used to work with his uncle in a trio on timbales.
It's amazing, right?
Eddie wanted to be a timbale player. His mother talked him out of it, but that's another story. But so finally, we working together, man. But what made this band so unique, not outside, but among us, was the only band ever in the history of Latin music. You know, when I was a kid, I had a very bad stammer. Sometimes I stutter, sometimes I get stuck on a word, but generally, I don't stutter. But in those days, I stuttered every word. A gaggle, I was a gaggle. The timbalero, A.B. Limo, great drummer, used to stutter. And the band leader used to stutter. It was the only band with 3 gaggles in the same band.
3 stutters.
I love it,
Yeah,
man.
that's what a story.
So Eddie will be talking to, he'll be talking to the guy about the arrangement. So me and Avy, we'll be talking. We both be stuttering. And then he answered me, so then the band leader who stuttered, after he finished talking to the horns, he would tell us, you guys gotta stop that shit, man. You know what I mean? And Eddie Palmieri used to fall on him. Eddie,
Oh my God.
if you ever run into him, or you, to this day tells that story. Eddie used to fall on the floor laughing, quack, 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 quack. The 3 hours, man.
Oh my God.
That's what happened. So that one made that band unique. Then from there, I went with Hector Rivera. Working with Hector. I'm already near, almost out of high school. And then I get out and I work with Hector. And in those days, the Musicians Union had a hiring hall, if you recall. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you go to the hiring hall, if you know enough people, or if you answer what they want, you got a gig. I used to work almost every day of the week if I wanted to. But that's because you knew Fulano, or this guy knew you.
Connections, yeah.
So the advertising agencies used to have men go down there, and they used to have a guy on the stage with a desk, a microphone. And the advertising agency men will go to the guy and say, listen, I need a trumpet and this and that. Or I need a bongo, a guido, and a conga. And then they say, so-and-so over there needs a guido, bongo, conga. So the guys will go over there and talk to him. Now, you didn't always get the gig just going and talk to him. There were one guy, a lady was three, who was the representative of all us. Humberto Morales was the hook between the advertising agencies and the Latin musicians in 802. So when he would hear that, he would send, vete tú habla con él, y tú, oye, ven acá, and you get the gig.
Wow.
Yeah. Later in years, it was Palmieri, not Eddie, Big Brother, Charlie Palmieri, Pacheco, and Ray Loretto control all the advertising agencies.
Wow.
They control everything. All them advertisements, well, them three guys were always in it. Whatever rhythm you heard in the background, Loretto had so much work, he didn't need to have a band. But he would tell me, no, I like to have a band because I want to see the people. But he was racking it up just on commercials, man. So much that he used to have to give work away. So that's the benefit of not being a superstar. Just a musician that does the job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he sent me, not because I was such a good conga player, because I do the job. You need a nice steady humbao, that's what you got. So he would send me to do commercials that he was not able to go. My favorite one you had to have seen was like early 60s. The TV comes on and you see the sky and the airplane is going up and you hear the violins going up and the airplane is going up and then they give me the cue because you got the cans on. And then the guy talks because there's a movie screen. Eastern Airlines, Wings of Man. My family used to fall on the floor, man.
I can imagine.
You know, the Batilon.
Wow.
Then I did one for Colgate. I got this one on Guido. I forgot what the other, Guido, there was the guy in Conga. But when they said Guido, I play Guido. So it was for Colgate, but it was in Spanish. And it was going to South America and the Caribbean, where that's the toothbrush. And then we got saying para arriba, Para abajo, they was a long man.
I remember that one.
Yeah, that was cool, man. Yeah. So anyway, that was the exciting times. And you could work every day, or you could, if you have hooked, if you know the right people, you get commercial. Even Nestor Sanchez, for years,
Oh, Nestor lived on. I
used
forget
to do
about
a lot
it.
of overdubbing
Oh my God.
in songs and everything
So
in
many.
English.
Yeah, a lot of.
He made a
commercials.
great salary.
Yeah.
Better than working with a job.
Yeah,
But the advertising agencies will pay you top dollar.
and you know he was a very well educated singer.
And
He
he
wasn't
was-
just a singer, you know. He read music. I mean, you
Yeah.
throw a chart at Nestor, and he was singing. You know.
Talking about Nestor for a minute, Nestor Sanchez was a great singer. I mean, one of the rare singers who do English and Spanish well.
Well.
No accent in English,
No.
no accent in Spanish. Puro. But now he's doing well. And he's getting all his money. Anyway, boom. So now, I'm working with Hector Rivera at this stage now. Now we're in the 60s. And I lived in Simpson Street in the Bronx. Pete Rodriguez lived 3 buildings away from me. We went to school together. I knew him from stickball.
What school did you guys go to?
But his family all had a group. It was a family group. Him on guitar, his brother on guitar, his sister on violin. They all had instruments, you know. So I really was not interested in that. So, but I didn't know that he had put down the violin and learned by himself, which he should have never done. He should have studied how to play piano. Anyway, so Hector, I'm doing good with Hector. Hector got a nice band, he got outdoor things. But then Johnny Pacheco hired Hector to be in his band. So that's a headliner. Because Hector's doing arranging for all these bands, Machito, you know. So Johnny Pacheco is my guy, and I'm gonna get Hector, he be doing my arrangements. So Hector split the band up and went with Johnny Pacheco. So I'm on the block, I ain't doing nothing at that moment. And one of my friends texted me, you know, Tito, who's one of the guys in the neighborhood, is working with Pete, but he believing his mother's moving to another neighborhood. So he got to go with his mother. That's how young we were. Got to go with his mother, man. So he says, maybe you could get the job, man. I really wasn't looking forward to it, but I went to the rehearsal. And I met the guy that was leaving. He was a nice guy. He was a tall guy, filthy body. So they rehearsing. Hey, Pete, hey, Benny. We all know each other. So he tells me, Tucker, you play. So I played a couple of tunes. So I got the job with Pete Rodriguez. But Pete Rodriguez was like a local band. You know, he worked weddings, a school dance, you know, nothing extraordinary. Meantime, my brother, being my brother, oh, you're working in my band, I'm gonna get you some work. So he brings these 2 West Indian guys to the house, to the living room in Pete's house to listen to the band because they're throwing a dance at the Palm Gardens on 54th and 8th Avenue. The Palm Garden eventually became the Cheetah.
Right.
But they were the Palm Gardens. And they were having a West Indian dance starring Eddie Palmieri, who was brand new hot, was burning up the city, man. So they wanted a band that was not so expensive, like a no-name band. So we got the job. So now he tells the West Indian guy told Pete, I'm gonna book a couple of hours into a studio, bring the band down, have a couple of tunes ready. We're only gonna use a couple of minutes of it just to advertise the band. You know, like Eddie Palmieri, and then P. Rodriguez and orchestra, whatever you play. Oh man, so we finally, the first time in the record studio, man. So we did whatever we were gonna do, and the guys came out of the booth and said, "No, it's too Spanish. It's the West Indian dance, man. It's too, you know." So Tony Pabon, who's an old rock and roller, that was his thing when he was a kid in Beck Street. He loved rock and roll. Goes over to Pete, and they go over on the side. And he's telling Pete, showing him what chord he wants him to hit. And he says, I'm gonna do this, and then you're gonna do this and that. And then he tells us, we're gonna start it off, and when I give you the beat, you know what I mean, you come in. So that's where he comes in with that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Pete Rodriguez. I'm not gonna I like that. And then we came in. And the old Santo Miranda lessons that he was giving the guys that I was watching, I remember the important thing was the backbeat. Bah! This hand, never mind. Bah! Oh, backbeat. That was the thing. So that got me over too. So now, the guy said, okay, yeah, that's it. So they did 1 minute of that. That's it. It's over. And actually, when we used to hear it on the radio, man, we used to go crazy, man. Yeah. Thank God, and the towers. A guy heard it. Cubano Judío, Pancho Cristal, from Alegre Records. He hears it, and he had just booked Richie Ray. He says, oh man, but Richie Ray hadn't recorded yet. He just had him on, you know. And so they contacted the band, and they set up, you know, Pete went with my brother, and they went down there to Alegre, and they, how many tunes he wanted us to come in with and do, and we did. But what they did, they separated, I like it like that, they made it a song in itself. They separated Pete Rodriguez, they made a Peach Madness. They separated it into 2 different songs. Okay, that's all right with me. So the rest is history, man. It went on, Pancho put it out, man, boom, it exploded, man.
Benny, that came out on Alegre Records, right?
Alegre.
I mean, who labeled the
Pancho
CD?
Cristal brought us into his office, into his studio. And Pancho Cristal recorded the I Like It Like That album. And the rest was history. It just blew up, man. The
Now,
young people,
how many records did you do for Pancho Cristal?
we did,
You did I Like It Like That.
quite a few, man.
You did
I remember at least 4.
All That Nice, the Christmas one. There's a Christmas album you guys did.
The Christmas album.
There's another one, I can't remember the name. It's got
That
a blue
really is
cover.
a good album, but nobody got that, you know.
Yeah.
That was really a great album.
I'm gonna say probably about maybe 4, you think, Benny? About 4 albums?
Yeah, and maybe
4
4
or
or
5.
5. 4 or
Yeah,
5.
I think max about 5 albums, I think.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that? I mean,
So then, lucky for us, the young people, they jumped in that ooh-ah business, man. I Like It Like That, oh my God. And then, what happened, the best salesman of music was Tony Pabon. Tremendous salesman. I mean, he get up on that stage and he sold that band and he sold that song, and his thing was to bring the people in. He brought the people into what he was doing. You know what I mean? He didn't just go out there and perform.
You know, that's true because I mean, I remember Tony told me a story, a short story actually, it was really short, actually before he died,
Yeah.
actually, where he says you guys were actually playing this dance and you guys were playing, you know, your Latin music, you know. We didn't call it salsa, I think, at that time. So it was just, yeah, just typical Latin music. And I think, from what I remember him telling me, he says, somebody or one of the owners apparently came to Tony, or some of the people that were dancing. There was apparently some black people dancing during this dance, and they went up to the band leader and says, you know, can you guys like produce something like a little bit more soulful, you know? And then Tony said, and Tony came up with the idea of I like it like that, you know.
But the only thing is, he really minimized himself, you know, but that's his nature. He was so low key.
Yeah.
But it happened at the studio where he got that buzz because that was what put the band onto the label.
Yeah, onto the label.
That
right?
1 minute business was crazy, man.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, man.
You're hired.
And but that was Tony. Tony used to sell the band. Tony was like,
Tony was
forget
amazing.
about it. I
He was
never saw
always-
a performer. I saw a lot of performers. Now I even worked with Jose Cubello Orchestra. And Jose Cubello had one of the best singers I heard at that time. His name was Bobby Escoto. Now Bobby Escoto had a monster hit called Babalagua. Tremendous, man.
Yeah.
So I really heard some good singers, and I heard Sardito, and I heard, but I had never seen nobody sell a song and perform, because he not only sang, he had motions, man, that were like, whoa, my God, man.
Yeah.
And that was Tony. Tony Pavon. Tony Pavon made that band totally. 99.9, it was all Tony Pavon package. You know what I mean? And the evidence was, when he left, you know, eventually I left behind him, and the guy, you know, he hired some good guys. He hired this guy playing timbales. He was a family of Jimmy Zapatel.
Okay.
I forget his name. He played timbales. He hired a good drummer, and he had a good horn, but the band died right after that. Yeah. So now Tony, eventually he said, he gave it up, he went, and he made La Protesta. So a couple of incidents happened that I was not happy with, so I gave my notice, and I left also. So now, couple of months went by, and I ran into Tony, and he tells me, what are you doing, man? How's the band? I said, I don't know, man. I quit the band. He said, holy shit, man. He said, he used to rehearse in a barrio, a church downstairs in the basement. And he said, he thought about it for a minute, and he said, look, I'll tell you what, man. But I mean, you got bongos, right? I said, yeah, I got bongos. He said, bring the bongos to, and he told me where it was. You know what he meant? I was in the band. I'm bongos. Oh. So I was back in the band, you know. Pachiaconga, Candido and Timbales. So I was working with La Protesta now.
Now, Benny, quick.
Go ahead.
If I recall, I mean, it wasn't really actually called La Protesta yet, right? It was actually called Tony Pavon y sus estrellas. Because that was the first
Well, that was his album later on.
Yeah. Well, that was the first one on Four Alegre Records. It was Tony Pavon y las estrellas. So we really didn't know it as La Protesta yet until Rico Records came into play. then it became La Protesta. Where
My first album with him was all the little heads around with fire all around it.
oh, no, your first album was actually just Tony Pavón y sus estrellas, which is for Alegre, which you're playing bongos there.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was before Rico Records even came into play. You know, which tiene el número averiguar.
So that's on Alegre.
That's on Alegre, right? That's it, which Benny played on that album.
What put the band over a lot, especially in Puerto Rico, was Tony was, of course, independentista. And when he was young, he was a rock and roll. He was always a rebel. So when he made the La Protesta song, he made the hit that made the most money was called
Bandera?
Bandera. You're right, Bandera, where he talks about Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And that he rather the island would sink beneath the seas than stay under the thing of the Americans.
You know, and it's amazing, now that you're saying that, because, you know, it's funny, it's just the little contradictions. I think I spoke to you about it, Willie, because during Tony's last, I guess maybe 2 months or 3 months, where we were supposed to get together with him, and never happened. I threw that question at him, because a lot of people, you know, what's that band have to do with anything about independence of Puerto Rico? I always thought so, because of the music, but I threw it at Tony. I says, hey Tony, I gotta ask you this question, because everybody asks me this question. When you made the La Protesta, did it have anything to do with independence, you know, because I hear a lot of the songs, you know, the words, it's talking a lot about Puerto Rico and the independence and all. Well, he says, he told me, well, actually, Johnny says, no, I have to tell you, I know it feels that way, but actually the reason I also named La Protesta was because I was protesting all the band leaders.
Yeah.
And I said, why? He says, well, because band leaders were taking advantage of the musicians.
Well, let me tell you my response. When I used to get people ask me if the whole band was a whole band of rebels,
Yeah.
I tell them, no. Esta banda es una banda de músicos. The leader is the independentista. Let me go one further. That record was so hot in Puerto Rico, burning, that the student organizations in Mayagüez got the money together, or they got this guy to bring the band to Puerto Rico. So we went to Puerto Rico and we did a couple of gigs, but then next to the last gig, or next to the last 2 gigs, we were doing the University of Mayagüez. Oh, they brought us in a bus. Place went crazy. When we walked in, they loved Tony. These are all rebels, man. So now Tony gets up on the stage, boy, and he starts doing Bandera, man. Oh, man, that place was 56, man. In the meantime, before he finished the song, he's saying, Bandera, all the lights go on. And I felt somebody on my shoulder, so I moved out of the way. And this short guy, give him mustache. Oh, perdona, permiso. And the band stopped. He walked up, tuck, 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 hit the microphone, said into the microphone, esta banda está arrestada. They arrested the whole band.
No way.
They arrested the whole band. We had a band boy with us, Ruben Ortiz. He took care of all the stuff. And they took the whole band in a bus to the courthouse.
Really? Oh, I never heard that story, Benny.
Oh yeah, the whole band was arrested right in Mayagüez.
Wow.
So now, they have like a night court. Or I don't even know if he was a judge. I don't know. I know they had a thing, or go get the guy who booked the band. So we had to wait till he got there. And they had like a hearing, like, I don't think it was a court, but they had a hearing. And this guy was some kind of official. He might have been a bullshit artist, but who knows? I don't know. He looked like a judge. But he said, okay, we're gonna let you guys go, but you gotta go home tomorrow. Book the airline, change the airline, you guys are out of here. And they threw it out.
Wow.
We had to go back home. And that's because they, in Puerto Rico at that time, man, they didn't go for that shit, man.
That's amazing.
We're lucky we didn't get killed.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? But that was Tony. Tony, he believed in something, he believed in it, man. You know?
It was that way, definitely, that's for sure.
Tony Pavon was, let me go back a little further. We had conversations before. I knew Tony when he was in Randy Carlos' orchestra.
Yep.
He played trumpet for this band called Randy Carlos. Manny Rodriguez was in the band too. That's how I got to meet him, through Manny, Randy Carlos. And we talked that. And he came from the Bronx, Beck Street. And he was a tough guy. He was a rebel, he was a tough guy, he was a rock and roll, a tattoo. They had a tattoo that in Los Angeles it was known as the Pachucos. Right here, of course. He was a tough guy, but he was a good guy. And what he believed in, he believed in.
Yep.
You know? How or why, I know how, but why he got cut down so young. And that happened in, I think, Hartford or Richport, Connecticut. You were there, right? No? When
Tony,
when he had the stroke on the stage.
oh, that was in Connecticut.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah, in Connecticut.
He was singing, and the place was packed, man.
Packed.
And he's singing, hey, he got his horn in his hand, and he was behind him, and I was to his right.
Yep.
And I always remember that he's singing, and he stopped singing halfway, and he looked back at us.
Yeah.
He looked back, and he fell on the floor.
I remember like it was yesterday.
Then they put all the lights on.
Yeah.
Put all the lights on. The dance was over. Ambulance came, they took him. It was once he had some kind of severe thing in his esophagus and his stomach that was affecting him. So after they did whatever they did, I don't know if they operated or not, but they told me I can't play no more. In other words, he can't blow, because that's your esophagus.
Yeah.
That's how you blow. I can't blow no more. So luckily he was good friends with the owner of the label, Cartagena, and he ended up being a distributor for records. We would go down to his distributorship. You know, he was distributing to all the record shops in the city. So that's how he did for X amount of years till he got deeper into the religion.
But let me ask you a question.
Huh?
Getting back a little bit on
Yeah.
La Protesta, like, at the beginning, because
When we're gigging.
before I even came into the scene,
Well, I gotta tell that story.
like how did, from Alegre to how did he meet Cartagena? How did Cartagena come into play? As far as, because you guys were in Alegre, so, and then all of a sudden,
Well, Cartagena came into La Protesta. He didn't come, he came into Tony.
so what I'm trying to say is like, did Tony know Cartagena? Or
No, he must have, I don't know,
because you don't know how it, okay.
he might have approached him.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But they became very good friends.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? But going, like he said, going back, I like to tell the story because it's so interesting. The People Jiggers band was very, very well known and very hot. I mean, I made good money with that band. Now we're working in Brooklyn. I forget the name of the dance hall, the major dance hall. Down the street, they had a bar, a lounge, where he was in the group that was in that lounge. Now in between the sets, cause they had like 3 or 4 bands, so we got like an hour off, hour and a half before we go back.
Right.
So we go and have a beer or something, whatever, and we went in that bar, two or three of us. I forget who the other guys were. And I'm watching the band. Now it's funny, I can't remember nobody in the band, their faces, what instruments they were, but I remember the drummer. Because I said, damn, that guy, he plays good, man. Because like we said before, there's a certain technique that shows you if you're a good drummer or not.
Yeah.
If you got that technique, you know what you're doing. You don't have to be a star. Just use that left hand the way you're supposed to. And I'm thinking, oh, this kid is good, man. Plays good. So he got out the bandstand and I went to him. How you doing, man? Oh, he knew who we were. We were all wearing band jackets, man. And I told him, listen, man, give me your phone number, man. I don't know why he thought, but he gave it to me. I got it, okay. Now, time marches on, I don't know how long, it wasn't too long. They were having a lot of difficulty with drummer because he was a marvelous person. I loved him as a person.
Oh, great person.
But he had
Marty.
he had a habit, or a drug habit.
Yeah, Marty.
And anybody with a drug habit, sooner or later he's gonna blow. So his name was
Marty.
Marty.
Marty Cartagena.
Marty Cartagena. And
Rest in peace.
What happened was that he beat up the manager from the New York casino in Manhattan because he wouldn't let him leave his timbales because we were there all weekend. So he didn't want to take him home. So he told the manager, can I leave my timbales in your office? And the manager said, no, man, take him home, man. But you know, he's tired, perigao, man, so punched him in the face, man, blah, blah, blah. But then he ran and he left. But the cops were looking for him. So the manager told Pete, don't never bring that guy back here no more.
You mean Tony? You mean Tony?
So that one I said, Benny, you play timbales, man. All right, so I'm playing timbales now. But now, I did that for a week, or 2 weeks. And I'm telling Tony, I told him the gig and I told him at the rehearsal, listen, man, I got a guy you gotta hear. No, Benny, please, man, you know, he really was annoyed. He said, I got other things in my mind, man. I said, but I got you playing timbales, that's cool. I said, no, I want you to hear this guy, that's all. No, adamant. So finally we were in the Salvadoreno. I called him. Yeah, man, without permission. Listen, Johnny, man, I told him the situation, but come down anyway. Now, none of us, not Tony, nor myself, knew that he got the LPs and he listening to this shit all the time. And he got all that shit down pat, man. Well, now, he come to the California by the bandstand. Hey, Johnny, I talked to him. So now, we're playing. In between the first set, hey, Tony, I got my friend over here. I told you about her. He said, no, man. Come on, man, Benny. Damn it, get them, man.
I didn't want to listen to him.
He didn't want to hear shit.
Oh, man.
And we did that set. Then we went for the second set. I told Tony, man, he must have said, God damn, Benny, fucking no, man, you know? I said, Tony, man, just don't make me look bad, man. I mean, the kid came all the way from Brooklyn, man, Just let them play 1, 2, 2 tones, it's over, man. Okay.
He gave in.
Okay. Johnny, come on up. Comes up, plays. Never got off the stage for the next 5 years. Never got off the stage. He was hired on the spot.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, you know? I woke up actually and I remember...
On the spot.
I sit down and Tony says, okay, we're going to play this song. I mean, he says, oh, he asked me, by any chance, do you know the song? I says, just count it off. I said, just like that, just count it off. And Tony, okay, counts off the band. And all of a sudden, Tony's playing trumpet, and all of a sudden he stops. And he turns around and looks at me.
Yeah.
He's like, with his mouth open, right? And then
he told me, he said, oh, hold on, man.
it's like, and then, so I did like 3 songs, and then I got up, you know, to get on, because it's an audition. You know, it's Benny's job, you know? So I get up like this to get off the stage. He goes, no, 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 no. Stay right there, stay right there. Do not leave anywhere. So anyway, I finished doing the whole rest of the night. I get off the stage. Tony came over to me. He thanked me for coming down. He tells me, hey Johnny, you know, it was great work. Listen, I have to think about it. We're going to Puerto Rico. We're leaving to Puerto Rico tomorrow. You guys are going to Puerto Rico for I think a week. And así fue, you know. So we left it at that. I went home, and a week later, on a Friday, the phone rings in my house. My father picks it up. He says, hey John, it's for you. I said, who is this? He says, I don't know. Get on the phone, and the only thing I heard was, he didn't even say it was Tony Pavon. He says, you're in. And I said, who's this? I says, he goes, it's Tony Pavon. He says, you're in the band. I says, oh my God. And my father had a big smile, because, you know, my father loved the band. My father loved the band. I mean, it's like, I never in my whole entire life even thought for one moment that I would be sitting with the band that I most loved the most, really, because my first album that I ever owned was Tony Pavon and his All-Stars, you know. And I always said, wow, I would do anything to play with this band. Look at that. And I mean, never in my entire life even think that was going to happen. Yeah. You know, but thanks to Benny. You know, and just going back a little bit, you know, going back to the story, how it came about, so pretty much my side of it, what I remember. So what I remember is New York City Community College down by J Street used to throw these big dances. Mm-hmm. So happens that I used to go with my sister-in-law and another good friend of mine, and this one weekend they invited me. They said, hey, you know, the Eddie Palmieri's playing and Tony Pavon La Protesta. I said, wow. So I went down and they were playing. Marty Cartagena was playing, you were playing. And so that was kind of like, what I recall the first time I met Benny. Somehow we met, we communicated, we talked, and then after that, but I think before that, Benny had actually seen me play, like he was telling you, because he saw me play a few times with Rene Grant. You know, at the time I was like maybe 16 or 17 years old, like he said. So we kind of met around that time, and we met at the dance. I had given him my number, and then I remember that Richie, your brother, and I believe it was Jose Mangual and Willie Colon had this company called Pecan Enterprise. And they used to sell percussion instruments, you know, campana bells for the bongos and timbales. And I remember saying to myself, man, I have to go buy myself one of those nice bells, you know. So I went, I took one day, I said, I'm going to go to the Salome Theater, go to Richie's office. I'm going to go buy myself a bell. So I did. I walked in, I remember Benny was there that day. Because Benny was always with his brother, you know. Mm-hmm. So there we met again, you know, we had met again. I bought a bell and you know, and he was happy to see me and blah, blah, blah. But then, you know, from there on, then of course, when that ordeal happened with Marty Cartagena, you know, then Benny remembered, because he had seen me so many times and he loved the way I play. He called me, he mentioned to me, you know, listen, there's an audition. I would love you to try out for the band. Would you be interested? I said, oh, are you kidding me? I'm not going to pass this up. So he says, can you come on Friday? we're going to be playing at, you know, at the New York, at the Cabrojeño. I says, I'll be there. And that's, the rest is history. You know, the rest is totally history, you know.
It was cool.
It was great. I mean, it was a great experience, you know. And the thing is, you know, and I work, you know, and this thing is, because this thing is about Tony Pavon, you know. You know, we want to, like, feel that, give credit where credit's due, you know. And I have to say, from my perspective, you know, that to me, those 5 years that I stayed in the band was probably one of the most best years of my whole entire life. I mean, out of all my career, which is probably spans about maybe 45 years professionally, I have to say that there was just something about the band, and not only about the band, but the musicians that were playing there, great musicians, human beings. I mean, we were a family. It was almost like you went to your uncle's house, you went to your cousin's house. That's how we were. We celebrated birthdays, you know, at the Cabrojeño, at the Happy Hills Casino. You know, we were always doing something like a family. And that was the important thing about that band, you know, that you didn't get that nowhere else. I mean, there's only one other guy I can remember that was like that, was Rene Grant. You know, Rene Grant was that way. He was such a humble man. And Tony Pavon was that way. Tony Pavon was, you know what, in all the years that even when I started, I mean, with the band, you know, Tony never embarrassed any musician. Never. I can never remember Tony embarrassing any musician. If Tony has something to tell you, like let's say you made a little mistake or something, he would never say nothing bad about it. He would come up to you very nicely. He says, you know, he may correct you. You know, oh, you know, try doing it this way. You know, he would never get mad at you, never. But Tony was, and the other great thing about Tony Pavon, he was a great humanitarian and band leader, you know, and he was just amazing, you know, and he stuck up for his musicians. That's one thing about Tony. Tony was a tough cookie. You didn't want to mess with Tony when it came to a gig, and Benny knows that. And I remember a few places that they tried to give him a hard time, and let me tell you, he really kicked ass. He really did. He didn't take no crap from nobody, you know. But it was an amazing five years. I mean, I could only say but the best. I mean, I made so much money with La Protesta that when I tell people today, he says, how much money you make like in the 70s? Says, you know, because I hear a lot of bands really didn't make a lot of money. That's true, you know. And I says, well, if I tell you, you're probably not going to believe me. You know, really? How much did you make? I said, well, Tony was paying me. And we're talking 1970. I joined the band June 6, 1972. And Tony was paying me at the time for one set, 45 minutes, $125. $125. Now, Tito Puente was paying his musicians about $25 or $30 a night.
He's paying them to scare.
Crap. I mean, shitty. And you know.
But see, it balanced out, see, because to the point they worked every day.
Yeah.
So if he's paying you scare for every day, it adds up to a nice amount of money at the end of the week.
Yeah.
But to the point they were the band, you know what I mean? But no, Tony was
he was amazing.
Good guy.
What would you say the legacy was that the band left behind? I mean, what was the greatest accomplishment by La Protesta for both of you?
The best album?
No,
the best accomplishment. Could be a gig, could be an album. I mean, what would you say would be the highlight of your experience with that band?
Well, you know, for me, it's not one particular. So I have to say in general, I mean total general, from the moment that I actually stepped into the band and the moment that I left the band, you know. I mean, I left the band, which I don't want to get into it, you know, because I don't think it's a done thing. It's, you know, so has to be all about, what I want it to be is all about the good things that were in the band, that happened in the band. And actually I have to say up to the 5 years, it was just perfect, you know what I mean? You couldn't ask for anything else really. The money great money. We were like family. We celebrated things together, you know. There was never really problems, to be honest with you. Doing the recordings, you know. Really, one more. I mean, what more can I say? Oh, there was one more thing that a lot of bands didn't do. I mean, how many bands do you know that really used to get a little bonus for Christmas? We got it. I remember, I don't know if you remember, Benny, but we used to get little bonuses for Christmas once in a while from Cartagena or from whatever, but we got a bonus, a little, you know, envelope with money, extra money. Which I don't recall no other band doing that, you know?
No,
So
Cartagena was good, man.
Cartagena was, you know, I mean,
He
you
made a
know,
lot of money for them.
yeah,
album, man.
he did, yeah, he did.
Yeah, man. I remember when I needed $300. I don't know what, it had something to do with my car. And I had just moved and everything. And I went down there. And I said, look, man, I need $300, you know, for this. There was no ifs, ands, and buts. Presents, boom, here, man. You don't get nowhere else. But you know, talking about one of the nicest things that happened in the band, I don't think you were there yet, because there was the Pete band.
Oh,
Pete band.
the Pete Rodriguez.
But that doesn't have to do with the band. It has to do with the song.
Okay.
I think it was Panama, and we were working in the stadium, you know, and the stadium was packed, because, you know, there's other acts there too. It's not just one band, you know what I mean? The stadium, it was a concert. But they bring us last, so they brought us in these limousines, not even a bus. There were about 3 limousines came, and they opened the gate into the stadium, and we rolled into the stadium, and I was in the car with Tony, and we go into the stadium, motorcade, right, into the stadium, and when the people seeing that, they knew that it was the band. The entire stadium started going, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. I remember I got in the car on this side, and Tony got up on the other door, and he walked around the front of the car, and he looked at me, and he said, do you believe it, man? You believe it? I said, yeah, man. That's what I'm saying, man. The whole time, ooh, and they kept it going. Well, of course, like I tell you, they had guys that will handle our instruments. We don't touch the stuff. They take it, they set it up, and we walking from where the cars are to where the stage is. And they wouldn't stop. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And we pray and we walk around, then we go up on the stage, man. And then we fell right in with them, run down, and man, I do get good pumpers, man, because we joined in where the place went fucking insane, man. But Tony, I always remember, look, you know, he wrote that, man. That was his shit, man. He looked at me, he said, do you believe that, man? I said, yeah, man. That's the best shit, man. That's not even in New York. That first got out over there.
Yeah.
You know? But
that is something.
You know, it's sad that he got sick so early, you know?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
It's true.
But who knows? Only God knows. But he went with God. He became a minister.
Yeah.
You know? And he even had his own ministry. He wasn't a minister in a church. He had his own church.
Yeah.
Because when I went to the funeral, it was packed.
Yeah, we went, yeah, there was a lot of people there. A lot of people. In fact, I have to send you a copy of that photo, Willie. You need a copy of that. But yeah, in fact, we were supposed to get together with Tony just before he died, right? I mean, we were going to get together with Tony. Remember, I had communicated finally with Tony.
Go visit.
Yeah.
But he got people came from Puerto Rico, man. That was sitting in the front row, man, Luis
Ortiz flew down.
And his wife. I had no idea that they were such good friends, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think because when Tony had his own distribution company, I know he distributed some of Perico's albums and everything. In fact, Cindy even did go on one of his albums. Cindy Pavon, his daughter. So
It was
yeah.
good.
How would you guys describe the music that you were playing in that band? I mean, you guys put it together. I mean, you guys played it.
And what when you say
I can tell you what I heard in that music from the outside.
okay,
I always felt like La Protesta was always a mixture. You could hear elements of little pieces of classical music in there, a little bit of jazz. You heard English, you heard Spanish.
yeah,
Tony.
yeah,
You heard
yeah.
a whole mixture of
I think
everything
so,
coming out of
yeah.
there.
That was Tony.
Yeah, that was.
You know, everybody didn't have that.
No,
Tony.
no, and I think because he's
That-
right about
that's
what he.
what
Tony
made
did
that
things.
band.
Tony did things even with Pete's band. That's why Pete never hung out with the band, and Pete, you know, had a very domineering wife, which is no problem. He loved his wife and he married. They had kids. That's your business. But it affected his relationship with the band. Tony near the end was doing things that to me were almost spiritual, man. Because yeah, he got a song that I hear almost every day in my head when I'm doing something or when I'm not feeling too up. He got a song that he called, listen to it, but listen to it. He got a song, Bobby, where he says, I'm laughing and I don't know why I feel so good, like never before. You know, and then he would laugh, but I mean a real laugh.
A real laugh.
You know? And that song, Bobby, it should, it didn't become a monster because the DJs don't, you know, they pick what they want. But Bobby was the better song at that time. That should have been on the radio. That was fantastic, man.
It's interesting that you should mention that laugh because that laugh is what sticks with me. He had like a cackle laugh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you
know?
listen, yeah,
And
that's-
there's a spirit to that.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's added to the recordings because there's a unique, genuine quality to that.
It is because you know even
That was recorded, was actually documented.
when I listen to a commercial like today,
know?
a commercial that has a little small portion of I like it like that, what's the first thing you hear is that Tony Pavon.
Right.
You hear that laugh,
Right.
and you know, and it puts a smile in you. It does.
Right, but there's an honesty that comes through that. You know, when I listen to records, I'm always listening. I'm trying to get the soul of the performer. That they put their soul into what they're doing.
Right.
Because you know you can play anything without soul.
No, of course not.
Just go through the motions. But that music had something. There was a spirit to it
Yeah.
that comes through. You know, and it's those little things that.
That should have been the Tony Pavon band because Peter Jiggers really didn't do nothing for the band. I like the guy, I respect him, but
But you know that
band
stuff,
wise,
Benny, that stuff came out in La Protesta stuff too throughout the entire
Yeah.
career.
let me
because
tell you another one.
It did. Yeah.
You hear-
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe
you
you
get
were in the
some wisdom.
audience.
Like you hear stuff like Averigua and stuff like that.
Let me tell you.
Little things and little messages that are coming at you from
The time that he bugged me out,
That's right.
and we didn't know the first time he did it was because the song, and we had to rehearse it a certain way. But when we did the gig, I remember the Colgate Gardens in the Bronx, with it's a low stage.
Yeah.
It's almost near the people. And they called that tune. It was called "Let's Get Together."
Oh yes, I know
And
that song.
he got
That's right.
and he got to the microphone. Let's get together, and he got the audience. And if you listen to the words, this won't last forever. Let's get together and let's dance the night away.
Yeah.
I mean, my pound fell every time I used to hear. And when he was standing in front of the microphone singing to the people and got them to, they wouldn't dance. They were all standing in front of the bandstand, man. That whole thing. Looking at Tony, man. Many dance halls, the people were not dancing. They were standing in front of Tony because he was not only doing the song, he was performing. I mean, for me, he was equal to Bobby Darin and all them guys, man, because that's the type of, if he went into American music, he would have been a
Superstar.
he would have been something,
yeah.
something big time.
Definitely, definitely.
Because he is not only being a writer, musician, composer, but when you got all that and personality,
Yep, combined.
you know how to sell something, man. That's how them guys make them big hits, because they sell it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many good singers, but only superstars have that super personality. And in Latin music, you know what I mean? Tony Malone was extraordinary, extraordinary.
The other thing that I noticed with that band,
He's in that lineup of Cheo Feliciano and guys that there will never be a second of.
yeah,
One of, and that's it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That had a lot to do with, he met, but on later years, some of the old-time musicians. See, the old-time musicians from the 40s, let's say, were a different type of musician, man. They were sincere and friendly, and no backstabbing. You know what I mean? They would talk to you. You know what I mean? Be whoever it be. You know what I mean?
well, why do you think it was that way, Manny?
The era was that way.
You had to depend on each other,
And in
right?
the 50s, the era was that way.